Hey, Magic Makers. I've talked about this topic before, but I feel like it needs to come back up again, just based on some of the conversations that I have been having with uh, on the social medias and also as well as clients, where, it's really challenging to figure out where do I spend my attention when it comes to health and fitness. And, as most of my listeners here, we're ladies over 40, and have been on the cutting line, the bleeding edge of diet culture. We grew up with, what diet are you following? Low carb, no fat, blah, blah, blah. So, and all of this stuff. And so it's really easy why it's so confusing. And so this podcast, I really want to sit down and I want to say, here are the 6 things that if we focus on them, then we have a great shot of living a healthy life. And, for many of us, clients that I work with, we fall into 3 buckets, right? So I have clients who clearly want to lose weight. Okay. I have clients who want to maintain what they got. And then I have clients who are just trying to find peace, right? Peace in their body, that there's no longer, clients who are like me, my former competitors, where it's like you are so regimented with how you went to the gym, how you worked out, that it's like when you fall out of that regiment, you just are like floating in orbit. You don't know how to re-enter and feel like you always have to be on something. And so this is aimed at those 3 different people. So when I say weight loss, I mean all of it. Like, how do I just maintain what I got? How do I just find my freaking rhythm, for the love of God? So the biggest thing here is that I want you to really think about, here are the 6, I call them the six focuses. And this is how I want us to think about it. So I can't remember where I learned this from, but it certainly was not me. So if I want you to picture a glass cylinder, just a picture of a glass cylinder, it's kind of like a vase, right? So let's picture a glass vase. And so I want you to think about how we can fill this glass vase with the least amount of water. And I want us to think about water as effort, right? So many of us think that in order for us to get any of the goals that we want, we have to fill this whole entire vase with water, right? And then whatever, and then put stuff in, and that's gonna, give us our result. So, but instead, what if we said, what is the minimum amount of effort, the minimum amount of water that I could put in here? So what if I were able to find rocks that were big enough to fill 80% of the cylinder, right? And then I could fill in pebbles, then I could fill in sand, and then I can fill in water. And so if I were to put those rocks in first, those are the things that are going to give me the biggest bang for my buck. And so I want you to think about, and today we're going to talk about what those big rocks are. And then we'll talk about the pebbles that are going to fill in on the other side. All right. But if I prioritize those big rocks first, I'm going to be ensuring that I'm focusing on the things that really matter and letting the small things fit in and around them. All right. So that's what I really want you to focus on, because so many of us I see getting bogged down by the pebbles and by the sand, that it leaves us little to no energy for the bigger rocks. Okay. So the 2 biggest rocks that I see for many women: sleep and stress management. I've done multiple podcasts on stress, just one a few weeks ago. And again, I'll link that into the show notes. But sleep, this is, and they go hand in hand, right? Because if I'm like stressed out, I can't sleep. And if I can't sleep, I'm stressed out. So it goes hand in hand. But the biggest thing for many of us is that we just tell ourselves we're going to sleep. We tell ourselves we're going to sleep when we're dead. And, sleep is so crucial for our overall health and well-being. It is what helps us maintain our healthy weight, our immune system. This is really what is going to help us promote overall health. and, reduce any type of heart disease, diabetes. Like, those are the reasons why I recommend sleep. It's all about memory, and, as someone who has family members who have um, have experienced Alzheimer's, dementia. Every year, one of our biggest charitable donations that my husband and I make are is to the Alzheimer's Association. It is a staggering number of people who will be affected by Alzheimer's in the next 10 years. And so sleep is one of those crucial things that, as a woman, as any person, we need to make sure that we are doing our best to have sleep. And I know some of you are like, girl, sleep is my thing. I get it, right? Sleep is, for as simple as it is for many people that it's really hard. And so for a lot of people, I just say that we have to start to figure out, how do we just make this a bedtime ritual? And I want you to think about, like, when, for those of you who have kids, think about, there was a little ritual that they had before they went to bed, either the way the stuffed animals had to be set up, or, there was tubby time. If there was something that, like, started the transition from sleep, from, being awake to being asleep. And as adults, we lose that. So many times when I ask my clients who are struggling with sleep, I'm like, do you have, like, a bedtime? 9 times out of 10, well, when I pass out in front of the TV, that's my bedtime. I want you to be like, how do I have a bedtime? And, I started a bedtime because I wanted to work out in the morning. And 9 times out of 10, I'm in, like, by 9 o'clock, my body is already starting to say, hey, girl, it's time for us to wrap up this evening. And I was resistant when, it was first suggested to me. Shout out to Mikey D. I love you to pieces. He was like, have a bedtime. And so if I think about, what am I doing, after I eat dinner and to the time I go to bed? I am not curing cancer, world peace. I'm not doing shit. So I just had to start saying, okay. And for those of you who are night owls, I get it. But, like, instead of just passing out in front of the TV or passing out whatever you're doing, just, just kind of pay attention. When do you start to pass out? When do you find yourself dragging your booty to bed? And then just literally set a timer on your phone and say, say you leave falling asleep around midnight. 11:30. Set a timer. Set an alarm for 11:30 p.m. And that alarm goes off. Get yourself up to bed, brush your teeth, wash your face, change into your jammies, and head to bed. So that you're not just like, oh, I just woke up and, Johnny Carson. Well, Johnny Carson's not on anymore, but, the late night show is going off and I gotta drag my booty to bed. Or you can just start to create something that, like, you look forward to at night. Since COVID, I started reading fiction books again, and I really look forward to it. So, before I go to bed, I write down 5 things I'm grateful for that day. I try to read about 10 pages. And as I'm going to bed, I'm doing about 5 minutes of breath work and then lights out. And so that's what I want you to start to think about. It's like, how do I start to make it sleep a little bit better? I know that for those of you who are in your perimenopause or menopausal state, you might be like having hot flashes and things like that. And here's where I would have a conversation with my doctor to see if he might prescribe me some progesterone. Progesterone has been a game changer for me getting myself to bed. Other thing to get to bed, magnesium before bed, a nice calming supplement. Tea. I'm a huge tea drinker before bed. So just start to think of what are things I can do to start to unwind before bed. If I am someone who's suffering from hot flashes, I have a handheld fan that I keep by my bed. I have dry fit pajamas so that, if I do have a nighttime sweat, I'm not waking up and changing my PJs. So that's what I got for sleep. The second piece is stress, right? I know so many people have normalized stress. Like, this is just how my life is. This is just what I can do. And I feel that. I feel that. Trust me, I am a recovering stress ball, but there's a staggering statistic about what stress leads into chronic disease, and that I'm talking mental health, anxiety, depression, and then, let's not even talk about, heart disease, blood pressure. so here is like us managing our stress will help us to manage our overall life, our moods, our energy levels, how we want to engage in our daily activity, our relationships with people, and stress eating. So many of the, clients that I have that, they are on an emotional roller coaster, and they'll be the first to be like, when I'm stressed, that's what I reach for. And stress for a lot of people is just a lot of just not sure how to process feelings. And sometimes it means sitting in some uncomfortable shit and just letting it be, just letting it be what it is until we can start to understand and name what that stress is. And I know that, like, especially work, I had a client that coworker was just horrible. And we've all been in situations where we've had horrible coworkers or horrible bosses. And one of the things that I had to start to do when I was living in my most stressful life is that I just had to focus in on what I could control, right? And I just had to compartmentalize that person just sucked. And no amount of energy that I put towards that person was going to change them. They were just a shitty coworker, or I had a shitty boss. And I had to say, this is what I can control, right? So I just had to make this sphere of like what I can control and what was out of my control. And that was one of the first, exercises that at the time my doctor made me do that. And, of course, I was like, I wanted a pill, right? All of us want that magic pill to do that. And it was the first, thing that I started to really realize, like, I sat there and I said, what could I control? What could I influence? And what was out of my control? And once I started doing that, it just really helped me to start to just pull away, right? It just started to say, I was only in control of my actions, my thoughts, my responses, my attitude, my enthusiasm, right? That's all I could do. And I could have some influence over, my company culture. I could have some influence over my employees' culture, but there are certain things that I just couldn't control. And I just had to just zero in on like my actions and my thoughts. And if my thoughts are always like, this person thought, blah, 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 like it was always, I'm just going to always be stuck in this like circle of doom. And, I was sick of being in a circle of doom. I was headaches, my stomach was always upset, and I just wasn't sleeping. And it just was like, I just had to be the person who said, I need to pull myself out, right? I just had to pull myself out, and I had to change my thoughts, right? I had to be like, I control what I can control, and just kind of like take deep breaths. When it came to other people, other behaviors, the other thing I could do is that, what? I could leave, right? I could leave my job. If I didn't like, I could move departments. So, there's, here's where you kind of have to start to get creative. And then for some people, like, oh, I love my job, I love the commute. So it's like, you got to look at both sides, right? It's like, how much do you love what you're doing versus how much are you tolerating? And then by there, you're building in on that stress. So one of the easiest ways that I would do is just like find things that you love, right? So it's like, you know, exercise. Here's what I'm going to say. When I say exercise, I'm saying move your body. So when I was in a really stressful job, I used to go for a walk every day, 4 o'clock. That was like, boom, I would go for a walk, and it got me out of my funk. And it just got me more into my body, got me more into nature. And it was just a change of scenery from just sitting there and just like, looking over at my boss and being like, you are the most horrible person on the planet. It just got me got out of the situation. Now sleep, another thing, just declare time out, take mental health days, like take a day off and just be like, I just need it to be all about me. The other way I was able to get out of my stress was, there's a woman, her name is Byron Katie. And it allowed me to kind of start to break out of the spiral there. And so she had these 4 questions that are just, really amazing. And she says, put a name on it, right? So what is it that you're stressing out? Even if it's the person, just be like, Sarah is stressing me out. And, then you have to ask yourself these questions, and they're only yes or no questions. So it's like, is Sarah was stressing me out, or is it my actions to Sarah, or my feelings about Sarah that's stressing me out? And it can be absolutely true. How do you react when you believe that thought? And who would you be without that thought? And this last one is a big thing. Like, who would I be if I wasn't always concerned about my boss sucking or Sarah sucking, right? Who would I be without that thought? And focus in on being that person without that thought. And then from there, it gives you other possibilities. And for a lot of you, we don't want to think, right? We want this like immediate, like, magic wand thing to come over us. But again, like, here's where, when it comes to stress, we have to take ownership, right? We put that name on it and we say, okay, this is what's bothering us. And instead of just saying this is how it is, we need to process through the feelings and just be like, okay, even if you come to the conclusion, it's just how it is. Okay, who am I knowing this, right? Am I just holding on to resentment? Or am I healthily saying, you know what? Sarah is how she is. And I can't change it, but I can control my thoughts about her. And then whenever she acts the fool or does whatever the hell she does that pisses you off, you just be like, Sarah's just being Sarah, and I have no control over it, right? So that I can bless and release that. Okay. So start to think about, this stress is hard and it is a process. And, there's times that, even now I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about stuff and like what I could have done better, what could I do more of? And I get that. And it's an iterative process, but I also know that I can't be in the swirl. And as soon as I have that first kind of niggle of stress, I'm like, okay, let's name it. Let's nip this in the bud before it becomes a thing. So those are, like, I would say, like, the two like biggest rocks I would put in my cylinder. The next thing I would put in my cylinder is nutrition, right? I would put nutrition in my cylinder because, like I said, when I don't sleep, most people are looking for energy. So I'm going to reach for, sugary, carby foods that are going to give me the energy because I didn't sleep. If I'm stressed, one of the ways that we get that dopamine hit is by eating, right? So it's kind of like both of those things kind of play into our nutrition. So when I talk about nutrition, I'm never talking about eat less. I'm talking about eat better. And when I say eat better, I'm not saying you got to go to Whole Foods and fill your cart with hundreds of dollars of organic, free range, blah, blah, blah food. I'm saying, what can we focus in on the quality of food, right? Can we take the processed food out of our cart? Can we shop the perimeter of our grocery store so we're filling it up with more fruits, more vegetables, more quality proteins, whole grains, those things, the minimally processed foods we possibly can. Can we pull those things out of our diet? And when I say that, I'm not saying do that right now, do that immediately. I'm saying, can we really sit down and focus in on just one or two things, right? And I always challenge my clients, pick one thing that feels really good, just have a conversation with my client, Emily, and she's like, oh, Kim, she's like, my food quality is absolutely horrible. And I was like, okay, based, and, I use data, right? I don't use drama because we all can be a little dramatic. And so I said, okay, Emily, based on what I see on your food log, and so let's just start there. Log your food for 3 to 5 days. And I know food logs absolutely suck. So I challenge you to pick one or two things that you're just going to focus on. Focus on fruits and vegetables, focus on protein, right? So just write down 3 to 5 days, how many of those that you had. And then I'm going to ask you, if you notice that you're not having a lot of fruits and vegetables, say you're having 1 to 2 cups of vegetables a day, I'm going to say add 1 more cup of vegetables, right? Just focus in on that till like you're able to easily get in that extra cup. So now you have 3 cups of vegetables. Great, awesome. So now let's focus in on something else, right? So that we have narrow down our focus so that we're not trying to like scatter box ourselves all over the place, because people who like track their food, and I'm not saying that you have to track your food forever, I have one, I track my food probably, 2 or 3 times a year. And it's always more of a check and balance. Like if things start to feel out of sorts, what's going on, right? Data. And so that I can easily say, okay, I was thinking that something was 2 tablespoons, but it really was more like 4 tablespoons, and this is especially like cooking oils or peanut butter or, my handful of nuts. Were they really a handful or was it really more like 2 handfuls that I was able to shove into one hand? Right. So this is where it just kind of helps us to say, okay, have my portions had creep, you know? And they also say that, excuse me, people who keep a food journal are twice as, ugh, rewind, repeat. People who keep a food log lost twice as much weight as those who did not. So if you're looking to lose weight, the first place I'm always going to ask people, give me a food log, because I use data, right? You could be like, oh my God, my food is so horrible, blah, blah, blah. I will be very honest with you. 80% of the people that I work with, their food is not horrible. 90% of people could eat more fruits and vegetables and eat more protein. The other percentage of people aren't eating enough, right? They're under eating for all the activity that they're living. So for cleaning up your nutrition, it all starts with, we can even start with one meal. If for example, I could say, what's the easiest meal for you to focus on? And it could be something as simple as every lunch you're having a salad. If you hate salad, then we're having a soup. Here are the 5 things I always say that are simple meals, right? That we can always add in protein and vegetables. You have soups, you have scrambles, you have salads, you have stir fries, and you have shakes, right? So in soup, I can add in many damn vegetables as I want. I can add in any protein that I want and add in any broth. Boom. I can easily add 3 cups of vegetables to that and add as much protein to that soup as I want. Scrambles, eggs, right? I can use the whole egg whites, and add in as many vegetables as I want to that. Salads, same thing. Fill a whole damn bowl with salad and salad greens, and then put some protein on that. Stir fry, same thing. It's basically a hot salad. Let's be honest, right? Hot salad with some protein. And then lastly, shake. I know many people are like, oh, I put spinach in my shake. Although I do have a girl who puts kale in her shake. I don't know how that tastes, but she just put kale in her shake. But there's other vegetables that you can put in your shake. I put in cauliflower in my shake. I put in green leaf lettuce in my salad, cauliflower in my salad, cauliflower in my shake, so there are plenty of ways that you can add in other vegetables into your shake. Squash, I've added into my shake. So any great ways to add in other things into your shake, but it all starts with cleaning up your nutrition with one simple meal versus trying to do all the things at once. And then on that nutrition, I'm going to add in my mindset, right? I feel that there are 4 mindsets that many of us fall into, and here's where we have to own our mindset, right? So I've used this example before, that I feel like that mindset, it's like GPS. And so if we were driving in, I use Waze, and I'm sure many people use Waze. So imagine you're driving home and you know exactly how to get home. And Waze says, hey, traffic's building up ahead, take this exit, right? And it's an exit you've never taken before. And you're like, oh, I've never taken this exit before. I don't know if that's going to get me, to my destination. And you kind of have, and so then you have like this, like I said, there's 4 mindsets. So the first mindset looks at the exit and says, get off at exit 25. And you're like, what the hell's exit 25? And then you say to yourself, you know what? I know how to go. Like, I'm just gonna, like, even if it's stuck in traffic, this is how you have to do it. This is just the way. And you stick with it, right? Then you have the second mindset who's like, oh, I don't know. Like it tells you like, you got 3 miles to go and you're like going back and forth with yourself. Do I get over? Do I stay the course? I know it's coming my way if I stick with it, but I'm uncertain. Like if I get off at exit 25, like what could I possibly run into even more traffic? And you kind of like, you go back and forth if you should make that change. And then ultimately you say to yourself, you know what? I know what I get if I keep on the route that I'm on. Then you have the other person who is like, well, you know what? I think I'm going to get off, but what if there's roadblocks? Like, could I overcome the roadblocks? Like, I've taken this exit before, and I know that there's, a bunch of potholes, and it's just going to be might be a little bit harder, might be a little bumpier. I don't know. Do I get off? What do I do? can I handle the roadblocks that is going to pop up because, you know, I've been down that route before. And then you have the last person who's like, you know what? As long as I'm moving, I'm happy. As long as I'm moving in the direction towards my goal, that's where I want to go. And so as we start to think about it, we need to start to think about, how do I shift my mindset? If we're in those first two mindsets where you're just like, I know it's going to suck, but I gotta do it this way in order to get the results, right? We have to see ourselves being successful, right? And seeing successful in a way that might be different than what we imagine it to be, right? Because the one thing that I always think about is, I think it's a quote that says, imagine it's better than possible, right? Imagine it's better than possible. What if I didn't have to work so hard? What if it could feel effortless? And I truly believe that that's how it can feel. Like, that's how I am right now with my nutrition. Is that it's just what I do. Did it take me overnight? Oh no. Did I chip away at one little piece at a time? Absolutely. I chipped away at it one more time. And so I want you to start thinking about, like, how does that feel like? Like, feel this in your body. And for some of you, you're like, Kim, that's a little woo. But for some of us, we're so stuck in that it has to be this certain way. It has to be hard. Like, I have to go to the gym and grind it out, and I must starve, and my nutrition must look like this, and I have to eat 5 meals. But I say this because this was me. That was me. Like, I had to eat this certain way, or it wasn't going to work. I had to go to the gym 2 hours a day, or why even go? And I slowly had to say, like, was this for me? Is this how I wanted to live my life? And I had to ask some hard ass questions. And I'm asking you to ask yourself some hard ass questions. And this is the mindset piece here, right? And as I kind of revisit, I put the mindset piece before exercise. I would be like, before nutrition, I put that mindset piece first. And so I would go sleep, stress, mindset, and then I would move into self-care, right? So exercise, I'm pushing that down. I would move into self-care. So we go sleep, stress, mindset, and then I move into self-care, because deprivation forces our body to overcompensate, right? Overcompensate for the losses. So if I'm not eating enough, if I'm not eating enough, my body is going to be like, I need more food. And so I'm always going to be looking for more food, and I'm always going to be pressing on that freaking willpower button, like it's a life, like saving my life. It's like it's 911, and wondering why my willpower is always giving out. Self-care. And, I've done several podcasts on self-care as well. Self-care is not like going to getting manicures and pedicures. If you love that, great, rock on with your bad self. But self-care can be just something. It's like 5 minutes a day. It could just be the bedtime ritual. My bedtime ritual is my self-care. It's daily self-care for me. It's how I like decompress. And my husband makes fun of me all the time. He's like, when are you starting your wind down time? Like, yes, that's my wind down time. Journaling. Every morning I journal. You could take a bath, meditation, breath work. My walks are forms of self-care. Coloring, the things that just kind of like bring you joy. I've shared this story before. I have a friend, and she's got like 4 or 5 kids, and she puts herself in her pantry, and she sits there for 10 minutes, and she puts this timer outside, and she says, don't talk to me for 10 minutes. And that's just quiet time. I have another client who she takes an extra lap around the block, and she sings a song. Like, that's her self-care. So whatever brings you joy, like, it doesn't have to be this like, thing that costs money. It's like, if it's you, sitting in your driveway for an extra 5 minutes before you walk into your house, do it. 10 minutes, do it. Like, whatever it's going to like bring you that joy. And then we can talk about exercise, right? So many of you say, oh, Kim, exercise is the only way I can manage my stress. Well, exercise is a stressor, right? And it's a stressor because it puts stress on your nervous system, right? And if my nervous system is already in a wired state, I am just literally like throwing gas on the fire. And so I know at the end, the hormones kick in, and you're like, but I feel so good after it. But could I pull down the intensity and still get that same feeling? Could that walk be the exercise versus me going in and like crushing a workout, right? And I know it feels good, like your boss yelled at you, or that crazy Sharon at the office, and you just want to go to the gym and just like crush, crush, crush. So here's where I just say, you know what? On those days that like you're just having like a day, maybe it's this for foam rolling. You're going for a walk, and it's not a power walk, it's just a walk, right? Just get lost in a podcast, get lost in your thoughts. Um, while you're out there, and then eventually you're gonna come home and you're gonna feel so much better. So I challenge women, especially over 40, like I'm never gonna take away anyone's walks, but I will say that you need at least 2 to 3 days of strength training, right? 2 to 3 days of strength training, because once we hit 35, just by the natural process of aging, we are going to be losing 3 to 5% of our muscle, and muscle is our metabolism, right? If you see, most of the time you see people in their 70s and 80s, and they seem flabby. It's not fat, it's that their muscle no longer has muscle tone. And so to keep that muscle tone, you have to lift weights. And so when I say lift weights, I'm not asking you to be like, a power lifter. I'm saying that you're lifting that the last few reps feel challenging but doable, and you're doing at least 2 to 3 days a week. And do you have to physically go to a gym? No. You can easily get some dumbbells and do weights workouts at home. It's funny, long before COVID, I started working out at my house because we had a year that we got like 100 inches of snow here in Boston. And I was sick of like either missing a workout because, it was, snowing that morning, or shoveling my car out to shovel my car, to get to the gym, and then shovel my car out to get home from the gym, or the gym was closing early because of snow. And I just was so sick of like, uh, putting my schedule around the flipping snow. So I started working at home, and I quite enjoy it, right? I just wake up, I go downstairs, I can have my coffee while I foam roll, and I don't have to worry about who's on the equipment that I want. And it's been quite a game changer for me. And a lot of the workouts that I build for the women in my Fit Girl Magic Society are based on exercises that you can easily do at home, or you can, take your workouts with you to the gym. And so, basically, I wanted it to have this conversation because I want us to all, realize that we have choices, right? And it's that if I start to prioritize the important things and making sure they come first, I'm not going to get bogged down by the little things. I'm not going to get bogged down by like how many carbs I should have. Because you notice I didn't talk about carbs, right? I didn't talk about carbs. I was like, how do you get more fruits and vegetables in your body? How do you get more protein in your body, right? That's all I talked about. And from there, that carbs are a very more nuanced conversation based on what your goals are. But the focus here is that we want to prioritize the big rocks. So ensuring that we focus on the things that truly matter, and that the small things fit in around them, right? It's, if I start to think about those big things, if I say, okay, my sleep's crap, so maybe I'm going to focus in on my sleep. Or maybe, you're right, I do have a Sharon at work, so I'm going to start to focus on her, not her, but focus in on how my feelings towards her are, so that I, have that sphere of control, and start to think about my actions that I can do that won't make me crazy. Then I think about my mindset, right? What kind of mindset do I have? Like, if there is a, traffic building ahead, how do I respond to that? Then I'm going to look at my nutrition, right? Am I eating as well as I can? And again, focus in on one meal, take 3 to 5 days and write down, what are you eating, so that you can start to look at the data versus your drama. Then I go into my self-care, right? What am I doing that things that bring me joy? Do I even know what bring me joy? Figure that out, right? What brings me joy? And then I can talk about my exercise, right? And so that, making sure I'm getting in at least 2 to 3 days of strength training. And did you notice I never said how long, right? I always say something's better than nothing. Sometimes you just have to start. And even if that starts 15 minutes, great, rock on with your bad self, because, you know, my hope is that after 15 minutes, you're like, you know, I feel really good, and maybe we can start to expand on that time. You know, I used to be one of those people who, like, if I didn't get my 90 minutes in, like, it was just shit. No, it's not shit. It's like, now my workouts max 45 minutes or an hour, and I'm my focus is in and out, no messing about. All right, ladies, I would love to hear how this has been landing with you. You know, if we talked about the 6 areas of focus, where would you need to focus? What is the easiest thing for you to focus on? And then what is the hardest thing for you to focus on? All right, magic makers, enjoy the rest of your day.